Cool bacon. Cheers to you as well. Get AKB brains. Super familiar for some reason. Bumper. That would have been a good question there for no. Such a good tune. Such a good tune. Gotta get it back to the other side though, man. You know, there's some new people in chats tonight, man. They could have added to the shout outs list. Hard to hide what you're doing sometimes and get somebody asking just like, yeah, that's completely paying attention. Smoking at. I think I can see like one or two answers. One or two answers what fucking smoking is. AKB fire. I think I've heard that. Alright, 14. Oh, it's really cool to see. This soul gets a bunch of new each. Expressing their artistic side. I'm trying to get well tuned here, though. Cheers to you. Can't smoke, no money, no grow, maybe soon. Oh, that fucks. That's fuck, Dreamer. Where you at? Drinking 77 double D's. Somebody has to kick some butt to fucking Dreamer. That sucks. As soon as we get a couple people in here, man, I'll get out of chat, man. We'll get to work. I need to get to work. Oh, he's talking to bacon. Where is the normal people? Nobody's in chat. What the hell?
I'd rather have to change and not want to act like that first, so I changed the rules, you know. So I know some musicians, you know, so quite a few. I was never a writer. I started playing drums when I was like 4 and a half. I had multiple musicians in the house. But music is I can't explain it well because I'm not trained in the history of the notes and everything. A lot of stuff gets changed, and a lot of times the mood will get changed because the frequency, they've now changed the way the frequency comes through, and they change the pattern of the frequency. So you don't have to just necessarily just play a different note. They change the whole, like listen to I won't even name any bands, but Treetop Flyer, I like that. That other song, you turned me to another one that I hadn't heard, I think. But people were writing their emotions, right? I remember night was it 2016. I was with a buddy of mine. I visited in Washington State, and I hadn't seen him at that point for like 9 years. It only been like once before that, 9 years before that. And right when I'm leaving Washington State, and he's very he was hurt, went through a lot of trauma, and I'm like a father figure. I guess I left him more than once, so he just was never going to leave anyway. But anyway, every time I would leave, he almost like violent speaking. He started singing these songs, and he went through all this stuff when I left him the first time in 1996. We went from Washington State back to the East Coast. And I was like, oh, where did this come from? And I was like, oh, he's just screaming at my face as he's driving. And I'm just like, he's like singing these songs. I was like, we stopped and I looked at him and I walked over the bridge and I'm looking behind me because I'm like, I've known some people like that. Those kind of people throw you off bridges. So I've been around some people that wanted to throw me off the bridge at one time in life. And they're not nice people, you know, they turn on you like that. And that's the way he was singing. So we got out. I was kind of watching, you know. But he was just mad. He was just mad again. So that anger was coming out. And he told me he wrote all these songs. And because when I left, he went way far into a crack addiction. I mean, just like he started hanging out with this guy right before I left. And I said, man, what are you hanging around with him doing all this stuff for? He's like, oh, you're leaving, blah blah blah. And I was only 20 something at that point, you know. But he went into this crack addiction, which I had, you know, years ago. I went off to a place where you don't want to go to, but it really just took him further emotionally, made him weaker as a human being, and dependent on other people, and that's what happens a lot of times when people get addictions. I won't use the name for they use for women. To get into that drug and then do anything just to get it because they're being abused just by having to use them. And by people doing that, saying, oh, I got this for you, but you got to give me this. I'm not your friend if you're treating them. So, anyway, music. Other music? Stuff that I hadn't listened to. When I started growing, I started listening to Mendo Dope. They encouraged me. I love the song I'm From the Mountains because I am from the mountains, you know. So, that quote from Frenchie at the beginning, I love listening to Frenchie when he's talking about, you know, they're going to find a garden, you know, it's a big garden, you know, Bigfoot's garden. You found it yet? No, he said, but you know, we're going to. We're going to find it. And I had just been up.
Johnny. Sorry.
Hey, Johnny, go ahead.
Had a couple join. We haven't said hello to.
Yeah, what's up, Eagle? Great show tonight, man. Mr. Phillips, pour it up. Great show. I mean, it's always a good show whenever he's up here. He gives us such good information, and I like the questions about the, you know, the mail process of the getting the right pollen, you know. But just who knows? It's all just a guessing factor, really. I mean, because we don't really know what's going on, do we?
I think
not really. He's got a pretty good rap on it. He's pretty well versed in how a lot of things.
Yeah.
I'd take some pretty good information. But you're right, we're still guessing. We're still figuring it out.
It's still all just kind of like a hypothesis in a way, you know. We're still just kind of giving an educated guess.
Is his gear F3 or F? I mean, he passed the F3, F4. I was in the garden doing a bunch of stuff, so I couldn't remember.
So if I cross, I got my DOAs and I have a slow mail, and I was thinking about crossing that back to the DOA strain, so that would give me the what he was talking about, like the like the 50% or the 75%? Something like that, or
50% of each
First
parent.
time 50-50.
first time 50-50?
50-50,
Okay.
Johnny, but right? So if you know that strain you're breeding to is 100% where you think it is indica, and the other one's 50-50 sativa indica, then you can break your percentages to think what you might get.
Right.
That's 100%, 50%, then you get 75%, or whatever you break once you start breaking down.
So out of the beans that I got out of my 5 plants that I grew up that way, I got 3 females and 2 males. And the second male was it's still doing its thing. It hasn't bloomed yet. And it's the one that actually topped itself, so it's got 2 heads on it, growing up on its own. It's a beautiful looking structure. It smells good. I'm really liking the way that one there is developing, and I'm wondering if I should throw it back on the other one.
I killed all mine.
One of those
Yeah.
This was a seedling.
Right.
She topped herself early like that.
Right. Yeah, she's got 2 tops. Full on.
Yeah,
Almost 3.
I love that structure, man. I just love it. I'm addicted to
I
that.
just stripped her down yesterday. Gave her the stripping yesterday. That's why she looks a little more pitiful today. Probably see that go, what the fuck? Yesterday she was all full. You know what I mean? I went through it. Well, what this do, I'm sure you guys all know that. When you strip them up like that forces all this and just
Yeah.
furniture to move right out. I'll put this in a good bush.
Hey, I didn't say anything, but I hope that he posts pictures once he finally starts going of SoCal. Not, there's two of them. The one that said he wanted clones. He came up the next day and he got a 1 in a 1 gallon and 7 in pints. And he was like, what is it? And I tried to tell him, he's like, what? I can't understand this growth, man. I've never seen a plant grow like this. It goes out, and it goes up, goes out, goes up, goes up. I said, that's my training. He said, that's not your training. And I'm like, all right. Well, I'm hoping he's seen them grow now. And he's like, well, that was his training. Because I do that, man, on every node. Do you do that? Because that plant looks like that if you started doing that. Where you bend it right across, bring your fingers up across the leaves, and on every node where you bend it, and each one it will look pop. Or even without a pop, if you do it without a pop, it takes longer, but you just keep doing it. But what happens is it looks like they grow like this, they just keep going. I thought maybe it was the plant, but I was like, no, because they all sit by my toilet on my veg, and if I sit on the toilet, I'll just reach over to everything on the veg, and I'm sitting on the toilet bending everything.
That's better than social media right there. That'll keep your mind right.
Oh my god. That's a good one there, Rick.
Hey, if I ever grow any with big leaves and run out of toilet paper, I'm set, man.
Oh shit, yeah, you got your wife right there. Yeah.
But you know what? If the leaf got that big, I don't think I'd want to take a cannabis leaf across my ass. They can get pretty gritty.
Well, it depends on the cultivar, I think, really, because I've had some that were like super soft.
Toilet paper cultivars.
Yeah. Is it the strong version or is it the soft version,
I guarantee you, I'm sure you've been in the field and had to wipe your ass with worse, right? We all have. We all have.
I'd probably wipe my ass with things that I'll never mention.
Yep, I've been up a creek a few times, up a few rivers and stuff, and unable to.
I've left plenty of jobs with one job.
I think there are certain situations now that I've lived through them. If I ever did them again, I'd just be like, I'm wearing 2 pair of underwear because I know I'm going to be out there forever, and who knows, it might be a shark. I don't want to have a shark when I'm 2 hours out in the woods. I'd better get going through 1 pair of underwear and use it to wipe my ass. Decompose in the woods. They taught you that in basic training. You better make sure you bring a lot of socks on this hike. Don't be just thinking you're going to make this. Whatever you're carrying on your feet, you better make sure every time you stop, you're changing your socks. Well, if I had to do it all again, I'd have known to have a pair of socks for every time we stopped and a new pair of inserts. But I didn't think about the water sucking up in the inserts. Put the socks on, and 5 minutes later, and walking, you're like, oh, wow, we ain't stopped for like 10 miles, man. I just soaked it all up again. That was really stupid. Shit like that. What great thing
makes
is
me
good?
think about. I think, who knows? He may be
Shit.
eating a sock himself right about now.
That was perfect.
Fucking, Justin Bean reminds me that they say poison oak. There was a time when I used to cut trees for a living. One of my most favorite jobs was being a tree surgeon. I used to climb trees for a living and cut them down, whatever had to be done. And I actually went to Ozfest like the night before, and it was all on and on, fucking partying and having fun. And Ozfest was one of those things, man. By the time they were like shut down or Ozzy came on, I was literally just wanting anything but alcohol. And it seemed like that's all I could find. Every booth I went to, that's like, no, sold out a pop of water, all we got's beer. I'm like, oh no, I just couldn't get away from it. But terribly hungover for the next day and the days prior. But it got worse because it was most definitely a one soccer day. I had to wander off into the woods and fucking do my business, which ended up being a fucking throwing up. Basically, I'm in the woods doing my business. I ended up having to throwing up and then falling over and kind of like, because I had my pants around me and my ankles and shit, kind of like wallowing around to get up a little bit, not realizing until like the next day I had wallowed around in poison oak. And now was hung over and was head to toe in poison oak. It was one of the worst hangover weeks, couple of days I had. I swear to you, I had poison oak in like every orifice that you could possibly have.
That is the I can't even imagine the kind of pain you were going through. Man.
Poison oak. You have poison oak. You have poison ivy, and nobody's ever been stung. And you got poison oak. You know?
Poison oak is way up there. Yeah.
It's like to me. Any more of those things didn't bother me as I got older. I was around them all the time. And once I started using the chainsaw around the goats and started eating. I think maybe, you know what? I think maybe it was after I started eating the goats who were eating the poison ivy and the poison oak that didn't bother me. Check that out.
Yeah.
Coming through the animals, right? I have this thing about certain animals and what comes through them, and I always think that you're always getting out of it. I've always
That's kind of like the worm bin process, right? You know, you're eating what the goats eat.
You slap them on food in cans, and then they got to send you to a big brick can to get fixed.
Right.
That's that. I never thought about that until that just now. Because I was deathly allergic to poison ivy up until the late 90s, and I got the goats in 99. Started eating the goats in 2000. And I had poison ivy on the farm and poison oak never did. And I used to cut. I used to have trunks this big on trees that I'd hit with the still at the bottom just because I finally figured that, oh hell, this is the best way to fight these things. I just chop right through so the goats can only go reach up 7 foot high. That's how far the goats reach. I I just cut them at the base to kill the whole thing. But then that shit would fly back on you, you know. So I always tell my stepson, don't ever throw that in the fire. If you light it, don't ever breathe it. Well, I don't ever breathe it. And no, it never bothered me again. So I would almost
Very true, brother. You are not supposed to burn poison those poison shoe leg.
No, but see, here's the thing: is that if the
Or
animals,
zombies.
if the animals are eating it, then there's a natural. There has to be a natural effect that happens to the animal that you're eating. It's passed on to you because you're getting its nutrients that were produced by what it ate. So there has to be a natural resistance built into that animal that's passed on, because they pass it on to their animal. To me, I'm not talking, this is science, this is my bro science living through life, right? That only makes sense. I never thought about it. I was highly allergic to poison ivy, and I haven't been since. Well, I haven't been eating goat and eating poison ivy for a year, so I'm not going to tempt myself. Factual evidence.
Poison ivy is like these things. Every time you encounter it, first your next encounter gets worse. Had a terrible. Yeah, it gets worse every time you get it.
But the old timers, the old timers used to always say you eat those things yourself. And that's what they would do when they were young. They would eat the leaves. They would have their parents would have them eat the leaves without knowing how to eat. And you build up a natural tolerance by getting a little bit in your system, so you're not affected by the food. I wish that was true about nettles. I got stung by some nettles so many times that finally you just get to the age where you're like, you go through a nettle patch and they cover your legs and your arms, and you're like, you just die for the mud, you know. You just get through the age where like, you ain't putting mud on me until somebody says, if you put mud on those nettles, you won't sting no more. Then you're like, on your arms, on your face, I'll cover my whole body in mud just so I ain't got to burn from the nettle.